So we're going to talk about walking by faith and not by sight, right? So that's going to be the main passage for the day, too. What have you ever thought about this passage? Like, what did Paul mean when he wrote this? And I think that the place where we should start is the thing that's most familiar to us, which is probably to walk by sight, right? We get that. We grow up and we learn how to do that from when we're babies, right? It means to go about your life making decisions based on what is happening with our five senses, what we see, touch, taste, feel, and smell. And walking by sight refers to the physical inputs that we have access to in order to make our way in the world. Things that are in our domain. And if, for example, if you're standing on some train tracks and the train is coming, you can hear the train, you can feel the train rumbling the tracks as it's coming down the thing, and you can see it, and you can at last know that by sight you need to move off the tracks or you're going to get smacked by the train, right? Everything in your body tells you to avoid that train that's going to come and hit you. We are literally reacting to what we know by our sight. But living by faith, that's a little bit different. And for a Christian, living by faith is trusting so much in Jesus that we're willing to live how God tells us, even if we might see something coming down the tracks that our whole rest of our body is screaming at us to get out of the way. It is trusting in God and trusting in Jesus so much that we're willing to disregard the things that we can see in front of us. Now, this is not disregarding evidence, but disregarding fear or emotions that are causing us or telling us to give up on something. You know, for example, Paul lived his entire Christian ministry with his five senses telling him to quit being a minister and to get off the track, right? To stop doing it. He went from city to city, and he faced mobs and organized resistance, and yet he continued to spread the gospel anyway, even though every single town he went into, he faced a train coming down the tracks. He kept facing backlash. He was harassed, chased, he was even stoned and thought to be dead and left for dead, but he continued to get up, and regardless, he would keep walking right at that train over and over again because he was walking by faith and not by sight. So it makes sense that he would be the one to write that, right? He continued to move onward and to preach the gospel anyway. And you know, many of the apostles faced situations like these, and so did a lot of the prophets in the Old Testament. Elisha was hunted down by Jezebel even after God did some amazing and unbelievably awesome miracles through him, like causing the rains to stop for 3.5 years, causing fire to come down from heaven and consuming the carcass, and the rain coming when he said it would, all these things, and yet Jezebel hunted him down anyway. Everybody hated Jeremiah, and he continued to preach the Lord's message anyway, even when it came to the point of him being sawn in two. John the Baptist was beheaded by the Herodians for standing up for truth and decency. Many of the prophets, they met a grim fate because they kept on talking when all of their senses, what they could see by sight, just said, be quiet, don't say anything, right? But they did it anyway because they trusted in God and what the apostles, Jesus had in store for them, right? So these prophets and these apostles did not walk according to what they could see that was right in front of them, but rather something else. They were walking by faith. They trusted in the Lord even when their five senses told them differently. And it is because of that bravery that the church spread throughout the entire world. You know, if God knew who he was choosing when he chose Paul, somebody that would never give up, was so determined and kept on going, is no matter what. And there would not be a New Testament church in the world today if it wasn't for what God did through Paul. His dogged determination made certain that Christianity spread throughout the entire European world. There's an example, though, of an apostle that did things not by faith, but by sight. And I'll take you to that passage here. You probably maybe have even thought of it, but it's Thomas, right? John 20:24 through 29. It says, "But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples were saying to him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he said to them, 'Unless I see in his hands the imprint of the nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe.'" That he's demanding sight, isn't he? He's like, I will not believe it unless I see it with my own eyes. He was living by sight. And after 8 days, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas with them. And Jesus came, the doors having been shut. You ever catch that? That's interesting. He just appeared inside the room. The doors were shut. It tells you that on purpose. So there was a locked door or whatever. It was closed, and he pops up in the middle of the room. Just boom, he's there, right? And stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Reach here with your finger and see my hand, and reach here with your hand and put it into my side. And do not be unbelieving, but believing." Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who did not see and yet believed." Right? Faith, not sight. Right there. So Jesus even says it to Thomas, right? So Thomas walks by sight, and he's actually admonished by Jesus. And Thomas is forever known as the doubter from this interaction. A doubting Thomas is something that you call somebody if they don't believe you, if they don't believe anything. So what does it mean to walk by faith? It is not blind devotion. It is not that. It is not to a cause that is unmoored from reality or anything that's real. That is never what the Bible teaches. The other apostles, besides Thomas, believed because they saw the empty tomb. They knew about it. They knew about the evidence, and they remembered the testimony that Jesus gave them, right? And they made a decision based on that evidence that they had to believe. And Thomas, even seeing that evidence, refused because it was not something that he could see right with his eyes right then. Walking by faith is gathering evidence and using reason in order to place one's trust in something that is beyond right in front of them, right? You trust that your employer will pay you at the end of the week or biweekly or whatever it is. You put your faith and your trust in them, and you work for free until they give you the money, right? So you're putting trust that they're going to pay you. That is faith in your employer. And the same thing is true with God. We have faith in our salvation, faith in all of his promises. We have trust, and we know based on evidence that he is going to deliver on those things. But it is not something that we're not being brought into heaven on a daily basis and shown it and then put back, right? That is not what's happening, but we have evidence for what we believe in. And this was the evidence that Paul had. Paul was on the road to Damascus on his way to persecute Christians when a light blinded him and a voice came from the heavens saying, "Why are you persecuting me?" And this was Jesus directly speaking to Paul. And Paul became a Christian after that and never stopped in his single-minded focus to spread the gospel. And it became a catalyst for him to continue to preach and to continue to spread God's message even when he faced what looked like certain death. Paul's trust and confidence never wavered because of this powerful, formative event in his life. And I think that each of us has very likely had moments in our life where God has showed us his power, has influenced us with his will. And we should never forget those moments in our life when we know that God was there and that he had an influence on what we were doing. And all of us have read the scriptures and saw the truth that was in them and felt that resonation with God's word, that truth, that objective rightness that just is in there. And we felt it within our inner being, and it is evidence to us that it is right because it appeals to the better parts of us. The forming when we look around the world, the universe, the forming of the cosmos, the breath of life, the fact that any of us are alive at all, the intricate details of the universe, they call us on us to a greater reality than the one that is accessible by our five senses that we have just in front of us. There are so many reasons to take God on faith and to put our trust in him, to trust him even when times are difficult and even when it looks like that we need to get out of the way. We can trust in God to help us make sense of things. We know that even when we cannot trust ourselves and cannot trust our own senses, that we can trust God. We can put our faith in him. And that is what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. And we trust in God every day to bring us where we need to be as we're walking by faith. Not a blind trust, but one built on reason and intrinsic truth. So let each of us challenge ourselves this week, challenge ourselves today even, to reach and grow beyond what we just see right in front of us. You know, to not do exactly what an animal might do, right? Animals react viscerally to all the senses around them, right? They have much more heightened senses because of it. They're very attuned, right? I see the deer out there all the time, and they always, when they're eating and they see me, they just all look at me. They stare. They're waiting for me to go. All right, they were like, okay, we're just going to stare you down until you leave. We are not going to do our own thing. We're going to wait because we are afraid that you are going to come run at us and try to eat us. You know, they do not have any faith in me. So that we don't want to be like the deer, right? Maybe as the deer pants for the water, but we want to have our trust and our faith in God and not live in fear and not live like we're caged. Right? God is with us, and we can trust in him where we need to go. To trust in what we have learned in the Gospels and walk by faith and not by sight.